Live from KTVN Reno, this is a 2 News Update.
Hope you're doing well on this gorgeous Blue Sky Tuesday. Thanks for watching 2 News. I'm John Potter. Here's what's new. Reno police are looking for 2 men suspected to be involved in several burglaries. Now, here is one right here. They apparently stole from a business on the 4800 block of Kitsky Lane. The men took about $25,000 worth of products stolen there. These 2 men are also used stolen credit cards to buy more stuff at a local Home Depot. Now the investigation is on, but if you know anything about this, just call Secret Witness. All right, rough news about the hantavirus.
It's a very hopeless feeling. It's a feeling which you feel violated.
Cash, guns, collector's items, those are just some of the things stolen from a dentist office in Prospect. Tonight, the owner, he wants them back, and he's talking to just one station about it. NBC Connecticut's Kristen Johnson live in Prospect with the exclusive interview. Kristen.
Good evening. Right now, state police do not have a motive for these thefts. At this point, they're just trying to identify the suspect who they believe broke into the dentist's office through this back door. Connecticut State Police need the public's help identifying this man, who they say broke into Priceless Dental Care PC on July 4th, stealing 2 safes.
All the stuff that you can have in a medical facility with drugs and all that stuff, they just went for the safe.
Inside, a bottle of morphine and a sedative, which are required by law to be locked up. Also, prescription pads and $1,500 cash.
That happens anywhere. You know, it's a different world, and I don't know where people come from, but they don't have a conscience, I guess.
But there were also collector's items, including 2 Colt Lady Derringer .22 caliber handguns like these.
They're actual firearms that can be used. That's why it's extremely important that we try and solve this case.
And the item Dr. Sakaris wants back the most?
I have slave ownership papers from 1823.
Papers he purchased from a Cuban collector. Dr. Sakaris came from Cuba when he was a little boy. He planned on giving the papers to his daughter Patricia when she graduated from law school, where she'll study civil rights.
For me, have a huge value because it's the significance of where we was and where we are.
Now, state police have connected the suspect to 2 other burglaries, one in Glastonbury, another in Middletown, and they are in the process of connecting him to a 4th. They're also trying to identify the license plate through surveillance video. Right now, the description that they have is that he's driving a light color 4-door sedan with a spoiler and moonroof. If you have any information, call police. Live in Prospect, Kristen Johnson, NBC Connecticut News.
His MO is to case the joint first. He's seen walking around.
Investigators say this surveillance video shows Anthony Serafin outside a DeBerry dental office in December, loitering there, looking around. They say he eventually broke into the business and stole cash. Serafin was arrested in January for that burglary, but posted bond and was released from jail. 10 days ago, an employee called deputies after Good Shepherd Lutheran Church on Howland Boulevard in Deltona was burglarized.
She discovered that the front window had been shattered with a rock or something, and money had been taken from the church.
Investigators won't say how they linked Serafin to the Good Shepherd break-in, but they have a warrant for Serafin's rearrest, and prosecutors have filed a motion to revoke his bond. The same day Good Shepherd was hit, the alarm at Cornerstone Christian Church just down the street went off, and deputies discovered shattered door glass and a broken window there, though nothing was missing.
Who steals from churches? That's really the sign of someone who's desperate, and we would like to get him off the street.
Serafin was serving prison time up until 2 years ago, convicted of crimes in both Volusia and Seminole counties. And though investigators say he has ties to both areas, Serafin's last known address was Sanford. They're hoping someone will come forward, and soon, with information.
He's taking money that doesn't belong to him.
Back live here in Deltona, in addition to cash stolen from those impacted businesses, they had repairs to make, shattered windows, broken doors. Now, Crime Stoppers is also offering a reward for information leading to an arrest. We're live in Deltona, Volusia County. Claire Metz, West 2 News.
Fresno police are working to track down serial burglars who are hitting up businesses along Shaw Avenue near Fig Garden Village. They have targeted one of those businesses 3 times over the past 30 days. Action News reporter Santaya Rose is live in the newsroom now with the evidence the thieves are leaving behind and what they're taking. Santaya?
Well, Liz, the burglars are striking around 3 to 5 a.m. and at one location, it took them just 12 seconds to get a 50-inch TV and leave. But they have left behind their fingerprints and clear pictures of the crimes. You can see the window shatter at this dental office, and within seconds, 2 burglars are pulling TVs off the wall. The fastest thief carries the large TV out with little trouble, but his accomplice isn't as quick or coordinated. Watch as he slips and falls with the stolen TV. The flat screen breaks, and he leaves empty-handed. Fresno police say the suspects are scoping out the businesses ahead of time.
Are they casing? Absolutely. They're in this small area. This is unusual. Have a series in a small area all along Shaw Avenue here. So they're definitely casing it during the day.
During each burglary at the Fig Garden Dental Group, the suspects pulled up in a different car, but they wear the same clothes. One suspect has on a hooded sweatshirt with a 94 on it. The other one has on a T-shirt that reads, "You can't ban these guns."
It's shocking. It's surprising on how fast that happens.
The office manager says it's clear the thieves are experienced, and they are so quick by the time the alarm company calls him, the suspects are long gone.
I look at the time when they call me, and I review my security footage, and they're out of the parking lot by then.
Down the street, other businesses are being hit by thieves stealing computers and laptops before dawn. Brad Castillo has had the front door at his business busted and his office cleaned out. He wants to make it harder for burglars to gain access after hours.
We're just to put a gate at the entrance to the parking lot. Obviously, people that drive in and smash a window can't do that anymore. They would have to do it from the main street, which would be Shaw.
Investigators believe the thieves also hit Stella Laguna Beach and Edible Arrangements in Fig Garden Village. They took clothes at the women's fashion store and tried to steal computers at Edible Arrangements, but left after discovering the equipment was too hard to access. Now, the dental office is replacing these stolen TVs for a 3rd time, but they are changing the way they're installed in hopes the burglars will not be able to get them off the wall again. If you know who these suspects are, Fresno police would like to hear from you. From the newsroom, Santaya Rose, ABC 30 Action News.
Members from 2 groups, 2 gangs, were arrested in 3 East Bay cities, Antioch, Pittsburgh, and Bay Point. Now, we have surveillance video for you of a burglary in May of this year, but actually the investigation began in 2016.
They broke this door, climbed underneath, and came over to our credit card machine.
Surveillance video caught those 2 people quickly moving towards the front counter of City Carpet in San Rafael, searching for the credit card machine and leaving with it in hand. From another angle, you can see them exiting the store while a car waits for them outside. The entire crime took about 1 minute. Today at a press conference in Sacramento, Attorney General Javier Becerra revealed that law enforcement recovered 40 credit card machines. Becerra said 32 members of 2 gangs called Bully Boys and Cocoa Boys and their associates were arrested. Both gangs are from the East Bay.
Using identity theft and fraud against dozens of, get this, not the person on the street, not the person at the park or at the school, against merchants.
This map shows the locations that were robbed in Northern California, mainly medical and dental offices, although other businesses were also targeted. They used the stolen terminals to run a fake return for many times close to $1,000, putting it on a debit card to buy items or get cash. John George is with the Northern California Computer Crimes Task Force.
You're getting a generation of criminals that grew up with computers and all, and they're getting more sophisticated and they're learning from other criminals.
And when they stole the credit card machine from that carpet store in San Rafael, they tried to obtain more than $30,000, but fortunately, the bank knew that something was not right, something was wrong, and they were able to stop it.
Businesses in Northeast Fresno are getting hit with a steady wave of burglaries.
Thieves are after anything in sight: televisions, computers, and monitors. Action News reporter Joey Barra joins us live with surveillance video of two thieves who ripped off a dental office. Joe?
Liz warned the good thing here for patients, no sensitive information was taken, just a couple of monitors. The trouble is, though, police say this type of crime is happening all the time around here, and without 24-hour security, it's hard to prevent. In northeast Fresno, police say desperate times are fueling a burglary problem.
A lot of times these suspects are addicted to drugs. They're desperate to feed their habit.
Sergeant Michael Landon has been tracking the crime. The most recent hit happened at this dental office on Friday. After peering in from the darkness, a couple of guys broke through the glass, tripping an alarm system and motion sensors, only to take two monitors. It was swift, but far from graceful.
One of the suspects cut a wire that was plugged in and got a little shock during the process.
Both thieves got away, but the surveillance cameras caught a clear picture of one of them.
Somebody out there knows who these people are.
As far as statistics go in this part of the city, this type of crime is nothing new. In the last 28 days, there have been 63 burglaries, both commercial and residential. The rate up 28% from this time last year. On the business side, Sergeant Landon says the targets are random. Many times the thieves break in not knowing what's inside, but in search of TVs and computers. The damage, he says, also tends to outweigh the stolen property.
Sometimes it's surprising what people will take. They're going to grab it and then they'll figure out what it's worth later.
In this case, all security measures were bypassed, but Sergeant Landon says this one key piece of evidence could easily lead to an arrest. In northeast Fresno, Joey Barra, ABC 30 Action News.
Yeah, Eric, unfortunately, we know that identity theft and using fake IDs not all that unusual. But what is unusual is what this man is accused of trying to use that false identity for.
This is not a mugshot. It's part of the dental file of a man who showed up at Smile Dental ready for some new teeth. He was pre-approved by 2 lenders. He showed an ID. He filled out the paperwork. He even had x-rays and dental molds made.
He was eager to get it done quickly. No alarms. He had everything set up ahead of time. Our patients can go online ahead of time and be pre-approved for financing.
But he did not show up on the day of the surgery, and when the dental office tried to contact him, they learned he wasn't who he said he was. The best piece of evidence against him now, other than those dental records, is his smiling face. Police are hoping this shot helps take a bite out of crime.
We're hoping to put his picture out, get him out on the news and get him identified.
Meantime, the dentist is out close to $10,000 for all of the work done leading up to the surgery that never happened, for a man about whom the only thing that was real was his teeth.
So you see him smiling in the picture, and he does need a little bit of work on his teeth. Sugar Land police say the man is facing felony charges for stealing that other person's identity. Now, we reached out to that person whose identity was stolen. He didn't get back to us for comment, but Sugar Land police are certainly hoping you'll get back to them if you recognize that man. Reporting live from Sugar Land, Tom Abrams, 13 Eyewitness News.
Employees at a dental office got quite a surprise when they got to work yesterday on Long Island.
A would-be burglar was hanging from a vent in the ceiling. Yes, hanging from a vent. It seems he failed to calculate his waist size when entering the vent. Now he's behind bars, and police say he's likely responsible for several other burglaries in the area.
Eyewitness News reporter Stacy Sager has more live from the courthouse in Central Islip. Stacy?
Well, Diana, police say he had some experience working in these tiny vent spaces, but apparently he wasn't so good at getting out of them. He was quite good at coming up with creative reasons why he kept falling through ceilings, that is, until he was caught in a very awkward position. Exclusive video late this afternoon of 32-year-old Sean Maranzino appearing in court
on 5 counts of felony burglary in Suffolk County. Serious business, but the way he was caught, almost comical according to those who did catch him. Red-handed, stuck in a ceiling vent here in Bayshore yesterday morning, until employees at Calderon Dental spotted him 3.5 hours later. His excuse?
He was looking for his cat, and the cat's name was Sparkles.
He even named the cat?
Yeah, and he said he was from the fire department and all that, but obviously, and then he asked for a ladder. That was the funny part about it.
Did you buy that for 1 minute? Or?
I kind of did, because I like cats.
But it wasn't Maranzino's first tall tale. Just a few days earlier, police say he fell through a ceiling at 3:45 a.m. after breaking into the vents here at the Jackson Hewitt tax business in East Patchogue. Trouble is, there was an accountant busy for the tax season sleeping here, and he wasn't having it.
In my office, I have a shotgun. So I came out with my shotgun. And I told him, like, you leave now.
Police say Maranzino seemed confident at contortion because he was an unemployed HVAC specialist.
He's a small, wiry type individual. I don't think many of us would be able to crawl through the HVAC ducts in buildings.
When he confronted the accountant, he grabbed his vitamins, insisting it was a middle-of-the-night delivery. Maranzino's family, meanwhile, at court today with no comment. Only his defense attorney, who tells us this.
And I have read the allegations as well, and I know they're very serious, but at this point, all I can tell you is he's not convicted of anything. He's presumed innocent.
Now, in at least 2 of these businesses, there was a pharmacy right nearby, so investigators believe possibly Maranzino could have miscalculated and just didn't enter the pharmacy and entered the wrong businesses. They say for sure it looks like he miscalculated the width of some of these vents, because in that dental office, the width was only about 14 inches. He's currently being held on $25,000 cash bail.
Police in Avon need your help tonight to find a man caught on camera.
In fact, he walked into Aldridge Pediatric Dentistry and stole some personal property of the employees there. Take a look at the surveillance video here. It shows this man entering the office and then walking into one of the break rooms. He's believed to be in his mid-30s. There's a close-up look.
He walked in to the facility itself, started opening doors that may have just been ajar or had been unlocked, and began walking around the place trying to look for any items he could take. And it was during that process, one of the employees actually did encounter him, spoke to him very briefly, and quickly after that time frame, this individual walked out of the building, unbeknownst to them at the time, with some property that belonged to the employees.
Now, that man left the scene in a black Cadillac Escalade. He got away with some cash, debit cards, and some personal property, as you heard.
Business owner, they broke into a dentist's office this week and wound up on camera.
ABC 15's Jason Valentine reporting that dentists splashed their faces all over the news, and now 2 people are behind bars.
Watch these two, almost like they've done this before. A man runs in, grabs a computer screen, and rips it right off the desk. His partner has a bit more trouble. She tries the smash and grab, but has to stop to disconnect. Even with the delay, they're both in and out in 15 seconds flat.
It was so petty. You know, why would somebody want to do this?
Shada Zahiri owns All Smiles Dentistry in West Phoenix, Indian School and 108th Ave. She says the crooks took the 2 computers and some other odds and ends, but robbed her workers of their safety. So she called the news.
It's just that feeling violated. It's just awful. And I just don't want someone else to have to go through that, at least from these 2.
With faces carelessly exposed, it didn't take much. This afternoon, Phoenix police say an officer saw these 2 walking down 101st Avenue in Camelback. Now 39-year-old Billy Clayton and 25-year-old Shauna Housel are in jail, accused of this and one other break-in last month. I'm Jason Valentine, ABC 15.
With some breaking news from the live desk, our crew just getting to the scene of a possible break-in. You are taking a live look right near Harlem and Higgins, and you can see all this broken glass out here. This is the Simply Dental Implants out in Union Ridge, and you can see there's teams out there already working to repair what happened. We also just got surveillance into our newsroom within the last couple of minutes, and you can see someone jumping right over the counter and then tripping over a chair, falling down, getting up, and then you can see a second person also making their way into the store, going a little slower this time over the counter. And it looks like they're possibly grabbing something from under that desk there. It looks heavy. Both of them are carrying it. Maybe a safe. Again, I'm seeing this video with you for the very first time, but this video just coming into our newsroom within the last couple of minutes. Also worth noting, this is about a minute away from a jewelry store that was also broken into. We were following this breaking news for you just yesterday, and we did learn that this store was one of 3 businesses hit in just 30 minutes. Police say the same group of people broke into Chi-Town Tattoo. That's in Jefferson Park. Then they hit this jewelry store, and then after that, they made their way over to Smoke Post CBD dispensary.
It's strange and heart-wrenching.
This is surveillance video of a family arriving at Cincinnati Dental Care for their appointment Wednesday morning. Workers say the 2 women and 2 children had more than dental work on their minds.
He's lost money, credit cards. You know, last time that was thousands of dollars.
That's right. The workers say the family stole their credit cards and then went on a shopping spree at Kroger and Foot Action USA. Olga Riven says she realized her cards were gone when the bank notified her about questionable purchases.
And asked if I use my credit card, and it was a transaction made for $600, and I said no, and I found out about what happened.
And when the workers watched the video, they were even more shocked. Watch closely. You can see a young boy duck slightly and then spin into the employee break room. When he comes back out, he appears to give something to one of the women at the counter.
I was not suspicious of anything. It was a very normal morning. They were just coming in for cleanings. Not one thing entered my mind that something bad would happen. They did linger around the front desk. The 2 adults did go out to the car several times.
Dr. Sohi says he's been in contact with detectives, and he's being told that an arrest could happen today or tomorrow. I'm Curtis Fuller, WLWT News 5.
We are about to begin another episode of the Prosperident Webinar series. From their unique perspective as dentistry's embezzlement experts, Prosperident's team brings you information you will not find anywhere else. Now sit back and relax while Prosperident's Amber Weber, Wendy Askins, and David Harris address the issues that are important to you.
Well, hi, everybody. Had a little trouble with my microphone there, but I'd like to welcome you all. I'm David Harris, and my colleagues, Amber Weber and Wendy Askins, are with me. Welcome. It's Thursday night, and that's webinar night. And it's the curtain call for us. We have 2 more webinars, and after that, we're done. So on August 19th, we've got a very special event. It's called Cybersecurity in Your Dental Practice, and we're going to welcome a terrific guest with us. His name is Gary Salmon. Gary is an incredibly specialized walking encyclopedia on cybersecurity, and he will have a lot you can take away. And then we're doing the finale. And the finale is on September 23rd, and it's called Everything Important About Embezzlement in 1 Hour. And I think it's going to be a lot of the 3 of us telling some war stories. Why are we wrapping up the webinars? A couple of reasons. The big one is we started this a little over a year ago when you were all sitting home bored because COVID had shut down your practices, and now everybody's back to work, and they've got some things to do and to catch up on the time that they missed. So everybody's getting busier, and we're getting busier, and we're going to move on to other projects, but we're certainly not going to vanish. Just a reminder that you are already registered for both of those webinars, so there's nothing you have to do. You'll get a confirmation email in a day or so that just reminds you about the next one, but no action needed on your part whatsoever. And one of the reasons that we're shutting down the webinars is that live speaking is getting busier for us. And if you're wondering where we're speaking, you can go to that page on our website and see some of the places that we'll be speaking. In the next 6 months, I will probably travel 50 or 60,000 miles, and I'll be at Chicago midwinter and on the West Coast several times, and speaking a few times in Texas. Lots and lots of places you can see us. And finally, don't forget that there is CE credit available tonight, thanks to our good friends at Altero Periodontics in Colorado. The way that you get the CE is that there's an email that comes out around when we're going to finish up tonight in about 1 hour and 15 minutes. And there's a button there that you click, and you just fill in a very quick form, and you'll have your CE certificate within about 5 minutes.
All right, so sticking with our theme for our curtain call series, prevent your practice from overheating, tonight we really wanted to focus on the external threats that maybe you're overlooking, areas that we're aware of that could cause a loss to the practice, but maybe we're not thinking about the diverse patterns that can exist within these external threats. We will be focusing in these areas tonight, but we wanted to take time to share personal stories, experience, and insight into areas that you could be unknowingly overlooking, such as burglary. I mean, we all have heard of, breaking and entering. How vulnerable are you in your practice to this happening? Other thing that we often overlook because we're constantly helping people in pain, medication scams. This is something that is becoming more and more prevalent, not just in dentistry, but in other areas of medicine as well. So that's an external threat that we don't always think about. And then identity and information theft. What you see sometimes with a patient may not always be what you get. So tonight we really wanted to focus on those areas that may be coming at you that maybe you just haven't thought about, and we don't want you to be overlooking.
So, like Amber was saying, tonight we're going to ask you to step outside of your good nature and your good heart once again. And, you know, I think we go into our offices or even into our homes and we look around and we're so used to seeing everything there all the time that we don't realize that people outside of us see something very different than we do. So, for example, what could you have in your practice or in your building that somebody might want to steal? Well, number one, you're a business. So how about cash? And, you know, we always talk about cash. Technically, that includes checks too, because checks can be stolen and deposited or cashed. How about narcotics? After all, you do work in a doctor's office or you are a doctor. We have expensive computer equipment in there with big windows in the front or the back of our office. So everyone can see how beautiful our office is and all that beautiful equipment in there, all the computerized equipment. And then one thing that we always overlook is the dark side value of PHI that we have our hands on. So we're going to talk about some of those things tonight as well.
Awesome. And one thing I wanted to mention, you've all gotten to know Amber Weber over the last year and a half or so. The practice that she's gotten here speaking and doing webinars has helped her. She entered a speaking competition. This is probably the most prestigious speaking competition in dentistry. And I am so proud to say that she was the runner-up. And that was just fantastic. So, you know, she has not been wasting her time here whatsoever, and you're going to see a lot more of Amber on podiums. What I'm going to talk about first is physical security, and I'll mention that I had a brief career in my teens breaking into houses, and still when my neighbors get locked out of their house, you know, I'm the guy they come to see because they think I can probably get them in. And a lot of burglary is easy to stop with relatively basic solutions. And if you see the picture on the screen right now, that's the front door of a dental office. And if you look at it, you'll notice that the hinges are on the outside of the door, which is pretty common because in a lot of public buildings, the rule is that the doors must open outward. Now, to a thief, if I want to get in this door, all I need is a hammer and a screwdriver, and I pop the pins out of those hinges, and then the whole door comes off. So if you, tomorrow or whenever you're in your practice next, if you happen to notice that your hinges are on the outside of the door, get your landlord, or if you own the building, hire somebody to put in what are called set screws. And set screws will just make it so that somebody can't lift those pins from the hinges. It's probably a $25 solution to the problem, but have a look at your doors, see if any do have external hinges. What you see here is called an anti-jimmy plate. So a lot of locks, and you've probably all noticed this, if you look at the lock of a door, it has a tongue that goes from the door into the wall, and the tongue is curved. And it's curved so that it slides properly into the door, into the wall or the frame. But also, if that curve faces outward, which it normally does, then somebody with a credit card or something similar can often kind of push the tongue in and open the door. So this plate that's screwed on there will stop that. The other thing is, let me go one more. Yeah, the thing there that looks kind of like a pistol in the middle, that's a type of lock pick. It's called a bump pick. And originally lock picking was a fairly difficult art, and it took a long time to learn. These bump picks, which you can buy on the internet, you know, a teenager can figure out how to do it in about 10 minutes and can pick almost any lock. So the other option is get rid of something that takes a key. You know, I have a keyless entry pad, either with a pass card or a code, and that will stop the people who want to use things like these bump picks. One of the other weaknesses that a lot of practices have, and actually a lot of your houses too, I mean, everything I'm saying here also applies to your house, is they have a sliding glass door. And the glass door has a lock, which is fairly sturdy, but if you look at the other door, the one that doesn't slide, normally they're screwed to the wall with about 2 screws. And it's generally not very hard to pop those screws out and then effectively turn the non-sliding door into a sliding one. So what you see there is a locking bar, and it will stop somebody from just popping the lock and getting access to that door. So all these things are relatively inexpensive, but when you next see your office, take a look around, and you'll see some things probably that you haven't before. Just continuing that theme, probably the best thing you can do to deter burglars is alarm stickers. When I got the alarm installed in my house, the guy kind of joked with me, and he said, you know what? Basically, we charge $1,800 to put the stickers around your house, and then we throw in the alarm system for free. So if I'm a thief and I can choose between breaking into 2 businesses and one has an alarm system and one doesn't, every single time I'm going to go at the business that does not have the alarm stickers. So have the alarm, first of all, and second, put stickers up at every door and every window. You want anybody who's contemplating breaking in to know that when they do, there's going to be a very loud noise and the police will be there in a few minutes. Take a look at your exterior lighting. If a thief is going to pick a lock, if they're going to jimmy a door, if they're going to take the hinge pins out, they want to do that somewhere where they think they won't be observed. So, you know, if the front of your practice faces the street, but there's a back entrance, and every practice really has 2 entrances. If the back entrance is dark, that's where I'm going to go. If you put up exterior lighting, and the best stuff is motion sensors, you know, stuff that's activated by motion. If you do that, then a burglar is going to find sitting there and trying to pick your lock, you know, while bathed in light that's coming down from above, being a lot less comfortable. If there is somewhere that somebody can try to get access and not be observed, that needs to be a door that you really need to reinforce, or a window. So that's when there might be multiple locks on the door. Make sure that it's a steel door or a steel clad door and not simply a wood one. You know, when you're looking at places to reinforce, the one where somebody can sit there for 10 minutes and do whatever they're going to do to gain access is one you really need to work on. And the other thing is, most of your practices probably don't have narcotics or any appreciable quantity of them. But thieves don't necessarily know that. So make very sure that you have a no narcotics sign. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter. Just on your front door, you need a sign that says simply, there are no narcotics on the premises. The thing about burglary is that it is opportunistic. And what I mean by that is, if I'm going to rob somewhere, I've got a choice of probably 5 or 10 or 50 places I could rob. And if I'm a thief, I'm going to go at the one that I perceive is going to be the easiest and is going to pose the least danger to me. So it's kind of like what somebody said to me when we were hiking in the woods. You know, if a bear chases us, I don't have to be faster than the bear, David. I just have to be faster than you. And I'll say exactly the same thing. All you have to do is convince a thief that it's easier to rob the business next door. And by the way, that's one of the key differences between burglary and embezzlement. You know, when we think about burglars, it's easy for them to change victims, and this kind of thinking, what's on your screen, will do that. You've heard us say in previous webinars that the same kind of thinking typically doesn't work for embezzlers. Why? Because for an embezzler to change victims is a lot bigger undertaking than a snatch and grab person. If an embezzler is going to change victims, they've got to quit their job somewhere, get hired somewhere else, and then invest enough time to understand systems. And of course, cameras are a really good idea as a deterrent. You know, nobody wants to sit there in full view of a camera for 5 minutes while they pick your lock. Now, that's not the only thing you need to be concerned about. There are also people who come into your office for legitimate reasons or apparently legitimate reasons and do bad things. Let's watch this video and then Wendy's going to tell you a little more.
Tonight, a break room bandit hits up a Granite Bay dental office, snatching wallets, cell phones, and purse, and all the thefts are caught on surveillance. Tonight, investigators are hoping somebody knows who this purse snatcher is.
And they're looking into whether she may have hit another business as well. KCRA3's Dana Griffin is tracking the search.
Take a good look at this woman.
I thought it was safe. I honestly didn't think that anybody would be bold enough to come in and do that.
She walked into the William Gilbert dentist office in Granite Bay last Wednesday asking to use the restroom.
It seemed like she was very comfortable with the office, like she knew where the bathroom was, she knew where she was going.
The employee said sure, but instead of going to the restroom, she walked into the staff lounge.
And then over here is where our employee lockers are, where she helped herself.
And minutes later, video shows her running out of the back door with a purse filled with wallets, cell phones, car keys, and a pair of sunglasses.
I worked so hard for my staff, and just 3 minutes that it took her to come through the front door, out the back, to take all of our stuff.
3 days later, that woman shows up here in Vacaville to the Blake Austin Beauty Academy.
She's wearing the same exact clothes, the way her hair is, and then I really looked, and it didn't really hit me until you know, my coworker said, "Vanessa, are those your glasses?" And I really looked and was like, yes, those are my glasses.
One thing I absolutely love about what we do is that you cannot make this stuff up. I mean, I've seen that clip several times and it just makes me laugh. I mean, the situation is not funny, but I mean, the nerve of people. So let's talk about people, visitors to your office that are supposed to be there and those that are there for nefarious reasons. Number one, as you saw on the video previously, their whole entire office was on camera. And I love that. I hear a lot of staff members saying, you know, I don't want my doctor watching me 24 hours a day, or my doctor wants to put cameras up in the office just so he or she can watch what I'm doing and make sure I'm working and make sure I'm not making personal calls. Let me tell you, that is not true at all. And actually, I had a situation when I worked as the managing director of a large group practice that was like absolutely wacko. A patient had come in and accused one of the ladies at the front desk of cursing her out and throwing a set of keys at her. So of course, the complaint ended up with me. And I said, let me review the video. And guess what? It was the exact opposite of what that patient said. It was the patient that was attacking the staff member, calling the staff member names, throwing keys at the staff member. So the staff member, of course, was exonerated and the patient was released. So internal cameras, great idea. Combination locks on the back doors of your building. Again, Amber told you we had a ton of these stories. I mean, you work in a dental office and my goodness, you just see the craziest things. I worked in an office where it had a clinic at the first part of the building, and then the back side of the building, kind of out of sight, was where the corporate offices were. And I was sitting in my office one day, and my office was right by one of the back doors. I'm sitting in my office one day, and I happened to look up, and I see someone walking through the back door. And I thought, well, that's interesting. She must be here for lunch, one of the staff members, something like that. Well, I kind of got suspicious. And so I came out of my office and I stood at the end of the hall and I watched this woman meander in and out of different offices and different areas of our corporate offices, because pretty much everyone was in the clinic working. So there weren't that many people back there. And then I saw her peek in the door frame of the staff lounge. And then she walked in. And I thought, okay, no way this is happening. So I went and I asked her, I said, ma'am, can I help you? And she said, no. And I said, what are you doing in here? And she said, I'm just looking around. And I said, well, let me take you to the clinic. Are one of our patients, are you one of our patients, or possibly one of your children our patients? No, I'm just looking around. So she had just driven up to the back parking lot, opened the door and walked right in. So we added these combination locks, where you just put in your code on every door, which was not monitored like in the clinic. And that was a huge help. We know that we should be escorting patients back to their seats when it's their turn to enter into the clinic area. But how about strangers that just walk in, like this woman, this crazy woman did in the other video? How about when a stranger just walks in and says, can I go to the bathroom? We just say, oh yeah, go ahead and go on back, right? So let's try to make it a point to escort everyone that comes into our door. If they're going to go somewhere else in our office, then let's take them there, right? And then non-patients, anyone that's a non-patient, you need to ask for an ID if they're going to be going back into your clinic. I mean, this could also be, and I'm really talking about people that you don't know offhand. Like if you know a patient's parent, well, of course you recognize them by sight, right? That's not really what I'm talking about. I'm actually talking about someone that comes in to fix your CT machine if it's broken, or any type of radiograph machine that you have. Ask to see their ID so that you know exactly who they are and why they're there, and then escort them back to the area where they're supposed to be. And I love the idea of having a visitor badge for visitors that come to your office. Again, maintenance people, whatever, just so that other staff members in the building know that they can trust that person. So they're not sitting at their clinical chair, going, good Lord, who is this person? Why are they here? So I like that idea too.
Yeah, and more to the point, somebody without a visitor badge at that point becomes needing scrutiny.
Yeah, suspicious.
Definitely. Yeah. So this is an area that I should hate to say excites me tonight, right? The good old merchant terminal. How many of this see this everywhere we go now? From movie theaters to getting gas in your car, this machine is everywhere now. And when I think of the merchant terminal, it makes me think of Madonna and her theme song, We're Living in a Material World. Okay, people, we're living in a digital world here, okay? And this digital world, this plastic box can easily allow a thief to turn it into that theme song, We're Living in a Material World. So this is a very, very opportunistic plastic box. And even though we see it everywhere and we become comfortable with it, it is one of a very overlooked threat that I've seen from personal experience. So first thing, anybody can process a refund to their card, whether they've paid with you or not. They can go up and process that refund. So that's one big opportunistic threat, whether it's a team member or a patient that you're overlooking. They can swipe it back in there, and we're in a digital world. People understand technology now. So you really need to have some key passcodes and protection in here. I could go get a prepaid credit card, put it in your merchant terminal, and if you did not have some safety systems in check, then I could definitely follow that Madonna theme song that I was talking to you about. Now, my personal experience with this, when we first got into the digital world 22 years ago, when I got into dentistry, the passcode on most of the boxes that you get are still very basic, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 2, 2, 2, 2. And how many times do you see those not changed? So definitely look at your options and make sure that that passcode is changed. I've even worked in some offices and had experience in offices that whoever is processing payments, in order to process a payment, your team member has to have a passcode to process a payment, so that there's also a paper trail of how that happened, who was in charge of that. So definitely look at those codes and realize that we're in that digital world, like I was saying.
Amber, I think a lot of this stuff also happens because some dental offices, the majority of dental offices are small, and they maybe have one person at the front desk.
Right.
And that person is constantly having to leave the front desk area so that they can go take care of other stuff or run back to the clinic or ask the doctor a question. And everything is not monitored there, and it doesn't take long. I mean, the very first orthodontic office I ever worked in, someone was processing the deposit at the end of the day, and she didn't even have them laying. It was like a 2-tiered counter. She didn't even have it laying up on the counter. It was on the lower counter. But, it was the end of the day. We were busy. She was ready to go home. We weren't through with patients yet, but we almost were. And she was working to balance the deposit that day. The patient comes up, asks a question, and there were several patients there. But one patient asked a question. She leaves the front desk. She comes back. All of the patients are gone, and the money, the cash, and the checks are gone as well.
Yeah.
So someone stole the deposit right off of her desk.
Well, and one thing with, like I said, we're in a digital world. Definitely look into your software, because another safeguard you can do with these merchant terminals is have them tied directly into your dental software, if that is an option. It doesn't allow external people like patients or the strangers that you were talking about, Wendy, to walk in and have as easy access to those machines, but definitely research that option in your software. Another digital threat, we used to live in the good old fold them over paper charts, right? Patients couldn't really see what we did. We managed all their balance, what they owed us, what was happening within the practice in the old paper chart. But as I said, we've moved into a digital world. So here is a key indicator. When I was a hygienist and I made this mistake, make sure when you walk away to go get your doctor for the exam, or doctor or assistant, when you leave that patient alone in the room, that patient can't turn around and start changing things in their own account, from entering, oh, I'm going to zero my account out here. I don't owe the $2,000 for the dental treatment I just had last week. So even though they might not work within your practice management software, how many of us in the audience today have a smartphone? I bet we're all going to raise our hand, right? And how quick are people now to learn technology and look at a screen, and within a matter of minutes be able to do something. So you want to make sure that if you do have to leave a patient alone in the practice, that they don't have the rights and the capacity to get to that and complete something like that. So we've just really got to think about that. We're in a digital world now, and that's a big external threat that could happen when nobody would even know it was going on.
So true. And sorry, I was trying to play a little of Madonna's Material World there, but then my cell phone got stuck and I couldn't shut it off. So
that's what I think of when I've thought about, we're in a digital world. And
it's so true.
One of the words from Madonna. So this is what got me thinking about almost 20 years ago. If they don't give me proper credit, I just walk away. So when doctors didn't want to take credit cards and stuff, when the big credit card thing was out, it was like, okay, I don't have check or cash anymore. I just walk away. That is way from long time ago for me, Dave.
All right, let's change gears for a minute and let's think about medication theft. And I'm going to show you something that just absolutely makes me scratch my head. So there's a website, and you can check this out for yourself. It's called streetrx.com. And when you go to that website, you can enter a location. So I put in Denver. And what this website does is it gives you the street price of various medications. So if you look in Denver, a 5 milligram oxycodone pill went for $15. And in the upper left-hand corner, you can enter what you paid for a street drug. So I have a lot of questions here. The first question I have is, who the heck is paying for this? I mean, putting this site up costs money, and somebody somewhere is paying for it. And I just can't quite figure out the commercial interest behind it. But the fact is that you have the power to prescribe, and that the medications that you could prescribe have street value. So there are lots of people trying to think of various ways to scam you out of a prescription.
All right. The lost opioids. I know this is all something that we're very familiar with right now, the opioid epidemic. And even though everything is becoming digital, it doesn't always mean that you are protected. And I want to share a personal story of when I entered the dental world as a hygienist years ago. I worked at a practice that did not have full-time hygiene for me. So it was a rural area. And so I would go to 2 different offices, sometimes 3 on Fridays, that were within 20, 30 minutes of each other. The interesting thing about this story is because I was filling in at different offices, we became familiar with this patient who would go to one office one week, he's in pain, swelling, wouldn't get treatment for the abscess. And then several days later, he'd go down the road, 20, 30 minutes down the road. Well, what happened is I started seeing his face, and sometimes he'd have a different last name or a different first name. His nickname was Jim or Bob. And so we all talk about job hoppers. Well, this patient was actually what we started referring to as a pill hopper. And when we started figuring out, I'd be like, oh, I just saw him a couple days ago down the road at the other practice. So we were able to monitor that. And even though we could do prescriptions for him and now it's digital, that doesn't always mean that you are completely protected. Here's another scenario. A patient can come in and you do treatment. You treat that root canal. He's come in, you've given him pain medicine several times. After he leaves and he's in pain, his car gets broken into, the prescription's lost, or him and his wife get in a fight, neighbors come over, kids take the prescription out of their bathroom. I had that excuse several times. Oh, the neighbor's kids came over and I had just filled my Vicodin and they took the bottle and I don't know what happened to it. So there's so many external things that can happen here. What you really need to know is, okay, I filed a police report. And then they tell you, but I need the prescription replaced. You know, all of this chaos happened in my life. I need you to help me out, doctor. We are in the helping business and we don't want to see people continually in pain. So we definitely need to know, like, is this a lost opioid situation, or is this somebody who is making the rounds being a pill hopper?
The point of this too is that a police report looks official. The police have no idea what was inside that car. What is reported as lost in a police report is whatever the victim says is lost. You know, I remember when I was in the Army, and anytime there was a vehicle accident, what the guys in supply used to do was they would look at their inventory, they would see whatever they were missing, and they would say, well, that was in the truck that rolled over, as a way of covering their inventory shortages. In fact, they did it once to the point where somebody actually sat and calculated the weight of stuff that would have been in that truck. And they said, well, of course it rolled over. You know, it has a capacity of 2.5 tons and You know, according to your records, there were 8 tons of urine. The fact that somebody hands you a police report that says their car was broken into and their Tylenol 3 prescriptions were stolen only means that somebody went to the police and gave that story. It doesn't mean that it happened. So we need to be careful when we get stories from people who want a prescription replaced for whatever reason. This one happened to a client of mine, and he got a call at home one night, and the caller said, "I'm so-and-so, I'm a dentist in Oregon," which was about 3,000 miles away from where my client was. "And my wife is dying of cancer. And she and I are taking one last trip in our motorhome before she passes away. And we have this problem that I hope you can help us with. She's running a little bit low on a couple of her medications. You know, if I was in Oregon, I would just renew them myself. But I'm here in a different state, and this state won't honor my prescription. So I'm just wondering if, as a brother dentist, you could help me out with this." And my client was touched by this story. I mean, it all sounded very sad, and of course he wanted to help. And it goes back to what Amber said a few minutes ago about, you know, as a dentist or somebody who works in a practice, inherently you're a healer. So my client wanted to help out, and the dentist from Oregon, you know, they had agreed on a place to meet, and something in the back of my client's mind just bothered him a little bit. And what he did, and this is the advantage of being on the East Coast and having a 3-hour time advantage over Oregon. He phoned the Oregon State Dental Board, which was still open. And you know how this is going to end. He found out that there was no person licensed in Oregon with that name. So when he went to the meeting place, and the guy did show up in an RV, and his wife really didn't look to be in the best of health, but the police were there to grab him. But you can see how this story would work, and it pulled at my client's heartstrings, and you know, he felt the need to help another member of the fraternity. And like I say, he just had this little voice in the back of his head that thankfully he listened to.
So how do you protect yourself from that mother who wants Vicodin, is screaming for Vicodin because her 12-year-old child got his braces on today and he's in so much pain he needs some extra drugs, right? Yeah, I've heard that one too. Number one, it's pretty simple. Don't prescribe drugs for people that are not your patients. Now, that's never happened to me. I've never had like a dentist say, "Hey, can I give you some pain medication?" But Dave, you've had that happen, haven't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you know, my own dentist once or twice, you know, offered. I had a broken toe or something, you know, and I'm sitting in his chair, and I'm obviously not happy. And my own dentist said to me once, you know, "Can I fix you up with some painkillers?"
Well, that was awfully kind of him.
It was very kind of him, and he was only trying to help. And you know, we've known each other for 30 years. However, there's a danger there, isn't there?
Yeah. You know, one thing that I do love about that story is it illustrates what we always say about people in dentistry being healers, right? I mean, they have such a precious heart and they're healers and they don't want anybody to be in pain for any reason and they just want to help, you know, kind of like Amber was saying. But oh, I'm sorry, I'm kind of off point. Anyway, so don't prescribe medication to someone, A, who is not your patient, and B, for any other reason other than dental. Secondly, if you're going to prescribe a narcotic, always consult your state maintaining or your state monitoring website. I know I am a member of a lot of groups on Facebook, and it seems like there are several stories every single day where someone is explaining some scam that has been brought against them for medication, and the monitoring website kind of saved them from getting involved in that. And then patient ID for controlled substances. We've talked, in the past in our webinars about, how many of you actually ask for a driver's license for your new patients that come in, so that they can prove, or that you can know and they prove who they are, or actually who they say they are. I think I said that right. Anyway, so again, if you're not asking for a valid identification for the patient or from the patient, and of course, again, if it's a patient of record that you've been seeing for years and by face and by name, that's not really what we're talking about. We're really talking about the new patients that come in, or maybe somebody that's come in 3 or 4 times and you don't have a copy of the driver's license, so you don't really know if they are who they say they are.
I'll give a slight dissenting opinion here. If it were me, Wendy, I would just check everybody. And even if it's somebody I've known for 20 years, I would say, I know that you've been a patient here forever. And of course I know you, but just as a matter of policy, we always check ID when we prescribe controlled substances. If you do it for everybody, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to make that decision about, do I really know who this person is or not? My sister-in-law is a family doctor, and she almost got burned by this. And what happened was that there was somebody in her waiting room who heard the receptionist call the name of another patient who was in the waiting room. And the first person realized that the two of them looked fairly similar. So, and this person was already on the prescription monitoring program's watch list. So next time she came back to see my sister-in-law, she booked in as the other patient and walked away with a prescription, and eventually it got caught. But I just wouldn't take anything for granted here. If I'm going to give narcotics, I just want to see your driver's license. And if you do that for everybody, you can't go wrong. But Wendy's right too. There's more of a purpose to be served by doing that for some people than for others. So everybody likes the concept of having nice teeth. What not everybody thinks is that they should pay for it. So sometimes people try to get free dentistry, and I'll tell you a story that happened to one of my clients. It starts with a patient who I'm going to call Mr. Smiles. And Mr. Smiles had been a patient of this practice for a very long time. And one day he brought his wife in, who had not been a patient of the practice, and she needed a fair amount of work. So the practice started doing it. It all got billed to her husband's insurance, and the insurance didn't pay. And the practice followed up with the insurance company, and eventually it went to somebody at the insurance company. And what they said basically was, we can't tell you how we know this, but the person who was treated in your practice was not Mrs. Smiles. So, audience members, what do you think's going on here? Make your hypothesis and think about it. Well, one more thing I should tell you. After they got this answer from the insurance company, the practice called Mr. Smiles. Mr. Smiles was back in the practice within an hour with cash to pay the bill. So now what do you think's happened? Well, the answer is Mr. Smiles had both a wife and a girlfriend. And as it turned out, his wife wasn't using his dental plan. She was dental phobic. And Mr. Smiles thought to himself, well, if my wife isn't using it, really my girlfriend could. So it was his girlfriend showing up pretending to be his wife. And I'm guessing that the insurance company called Mrs. Smiles to do some kind of verification, and the real Mrs. Smiles said, "No, I haven't been to the dentist in 9 years," and that's why they didn't pay the claim. So what do we do about this, Amber?
Well, Dave, when you tell that story, it makes me think of what we're all familiar with now, like Match.com or Tinder, where you swipe left or swipe right. You know, what you see isn't what you get.
I have no experience with this, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to go on a blind date with a patient after you meet them. I mean, that's what that brings to my mind. Like, basically, they went on a blind date and said, "Oh, looks good," right? So I always tell offices, you know, verify what you see. We always say trust but verify. We're not on the blind dating site, you know, so we got to overlook that. So you want visual images to identify your patient and responsible parties. Like you're saying, Mr. Smiles, we need to make sure that Mr. Smiles is who he says he is as well. Majority of software nowadays will support image capturing for this. In addition to a driver's license, I always recommend an insurance card as well if you have a patient that has insurance. If your software does not support taking a photo of that, you can usually scan it into that, or there's third-party companies now that offer that. So that's the first thing. I want to visually see that what I see when you hand it to me and what I have in your file is what I'm getting, right? Because we're going on that first blind date with our patient. Then the next thing that I've seen happen, even in pharmacies, medical practices, all sorts of things, is excuse me, Mr. Harris, do you still live at 1901 Main Street Boulevard? And of course, what's your answer going to be? Why, yes, I do, because that's what we're looking for. So the key here is ask open-ended questions. Make the patient fill in the blanks so that as you are visually looking at who they said they were, they're telling that to you. You're making them fill in the blanks and properly give you the correct answer. So that's a great screening process for all of your team members moving forward. So I definitely think that is really, really important. Here's another thing. In dentistry, we're all about giving and sharing, but you've got to make sure what your patient is also seeing on the screen, because you're looking at the patient in front of them, their driver's license that you just had pulled up. You want to make sure that what you just had, the next person doesn't see. So make sure your monitors are secure so that you don't have any other people that say, "Oh, I saw so-and-so lives here, and I heard what insurance he's got. I can definitely tap into that." So make sure that's not visible. And here's a key thing for me. Like I said earlier, so patients can't also access their records. When you walk away from a system, make sure it automatically logs off. So similar to your smartphone, we all have passcodes, face codes, thumbprints. Majority of smartphones now are going to have an automatic log off so that someone can't walk by, pick up your phone and get into your information. No different in your dental practice. Make sure that it's going to time out so that it is more protected, and the people who are supposed to access it and supposed to verify and help minimize these external threats can do so accordingly.
Let me show you guys something. Whoops, find the right level. That's called an Every Key. They cost about $40. And it hooks by Bluetooth to my computer. When I get more than 8 feet away from my computer, as long as the Every Key's in my pocket, so when I walk 8 feet away, my computer locks. When I come back within the 8 feet, my computer unlocks. And it's so simple because I don't even have to think about it. So increasingly there are technological solutions to this problem as well. You know, the danger is when you count on somebody to have to remember to log out of their computer when they walk away from it. I mean, it's easy to forget. And I think in a lot of practices, without pointing fingers, the worst offenders probably have the title doctor in front of their name. and they're sitting there at their workstation, and then they get called in to do a hygiene check, and they don't want to keep the hygienist waiting because, Amber, we all know what cranky pants they can be. So they end up not taking the 10 seconds to log out. So maybe technology can help you. Just go back to the open-ended questions thing for a minute. Where I live, the hospitals are terrible at this. You know, if you go into the emergency room here and you say your name is David Harris, the next question they will ask you is, you know, is your date of birth, and then they'll give it to you. And is your address, and they'll give it to you. And as Amber says, if you're an identity theft, all you have to do is just keep saying yes, as opposed to the hospital saying, Mr. Harris, what's your date of birth? And making sure that it lines up with what's in their computer, and asking what's your address. And if I give something that's different than what's on file, they say, oh, it looks like we may have a former address. Where did you live before your current address? You know, they just play right into it. And as Amber says, in your dental practice, you need to, when somebody comes in who's a patient and you're updating their address information, just ask them the question, what's your address? And compare it with what's on the screen. I know we want to do the closed-ended thing because it's quicker, but it's also a bit dangerous.
So we have all this information in our computer system. What could someone do with someone's full name, their social security number, their address, their birthday, and also their insurance information? Well, number one, the street value of a credit card number is $5, but check this out. The street value of insurance information is $50. Now, a lot of people think, you know, that it's crazy that somebody would want to steal someone else's insurance information. But I actually have a good friend who is an orthodontist in California, and she was working on a patient that was going to have orthodontic surgery. Well, you know, in ortho, you go through several months of orthodontic treatment, you position the teeth, and then you get ready to have the surgery. When the patient went to have the surgery, she went to the hospital, but the surgery was declined. And then the patient just disappeared. And my friend found out that her patient, her legitimate orthodontic patient, had used someone else's insurance identification and someone else's insurance policy to have orthodontic surgery done. I mean, so we think we're immune to that. I mean, you think, well, who in orthodontics would want to steal somebody's insurance information, and why? That doesn't make any sense. But it really does if you consider the financial value of it. Let's talk about bulk information theft. And I see, oh, where did it go? Gary, where are you at? Yeah, Gary Solman's on with us tonight. So,
Gary, next month.
Yeah, I feel inferior even talking about this right now, because this is going to be, I mean, he's going to blow us away with his information next month on this. But when we talk about bulk information theft, we're talking about stuff that ends up on the dark web and all that. We don't want to go there. But here's some information that is important for you to know. Number one, if there is a HIPAA violation or a HIPAA breach of your software, there are very heavy fines. The fines are broken down into tiers, which I won't bore you to tears. Oh. That was like an Amber corny joke. What is it? Yeah? Are you proud of me, Amber?
I like it.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, no, seriously, it's broken down into 4 tiers, and it's based on how deliberate or unintentional the breach was. But needless to say, there are some hefty fines that go along with it as well, depending on the number of patients which the breach occurs. I mean, you know, how many of you have at least 500 patients in your database, right? I would venture to say every single one of you, every single practice has at least, if you go through the entire span, your active patients, your inactive patients, you've got more than 500 patients. Well, if you have a HIPAA breach of your data and more than 500 patient accounts are affected, not only do you have to notify those patients by either US mail or email, you also have to notify the media. Can you imagine what that would do to the reputation of your practice? For patients, for it to be on the news that you had a data breach, or be in print in your local newspaper that you had a data breach. Those patients, if there is a data breach, they also have to be notified within 60 days, or you could incur more penalties. And also most of data breaches come from malicious outsiders through email, through spam, right? So I'm so excited. Gary is with us tonight. Gary, I'm sorry I can't put you on screen, and you could address this more thoroughly than I can, but we're counting on you to do it next month.
Hey, or Wendy, one thing that made me think of is we all live on the internet now. So think about that. If the media gets a hold of that story and your name and your practice is the front line of that story, think about your 5-star reviews after that day. I mean, that's really going to hurt you.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, patients want to know that their information will be safeguarded. This is one thing that I saw with one of our clients. And the office manager got a call from somebody who said they were with Delta Dental. And he had a fairly convincing story. He said a bunch of claims got miscoded. So claims that were submitted from this office got coded to another office. And they're going to fix it, but it'll take a couple of weeks, because basically they have to manually go through a whole bunch of claims. And until that is done, we have to put both the offices on payment hold. So no more money coming from Delta. And the next thing that Mark Stevens said is, you can help us here. If you can give us all the claim forms that were submitted to us from one date to another, then we can correct this much faster than if we have to go and hunt all these errant claims out manually. So at this point, the poor office manager, I mean, the last thing she wants to do is go to her doctor and say, you know what, Delta Dental screwed up, and they're our biggest insurer, and they're not going to pay us any money for goodness knows how long. I mean, that was something she really didn't want to share with the doctor. But then Mark Stevens said something that kind of got her a little concerned when he said, we'll send a courier to your office at 2 p.m. to pick this stuff up. And that was the point when she got a little bit spooked, and she called me, and I said, no way. There's no way that this happened. And we phoned Delta, and it hadn't happened, and they said, and if it did, this is not how it would be corrected. So if this office manager had gone along with what this guy named Mark Stevens, or identifying himself as Mark Stevens was, if she'd gone along with it, I mean, Mark Stevens would have gotten, probably 300 insurance claims, all of which have all those things that Wendy talked about, the name of the claimant, what treatment they had, what their policy number was, all those things would be on those claims. And at street value of $50 each, that's a lot of money.
So we've talked about these external threats and how to think about all this. And it seems like a lot coming at you in many different ways. As you've heard me say in previous webinars, dentistry is a lot of moving parts. Our practices are busy. We have patients coming in with all different types of needs, smile makeovers. We're trying to make patients happy and comfortable, want to come back and see us. This one down the hall is in pain. The next one maybe has high anxiety. So we have to really adjust and be ready for different situations. And this is what makes dentistry a very attractive target. because they know we're fast paced and we are service based, trying to help people business. So that's one of the main things we have to remember. But our focus on helping people can make you feel vulnerable. One of the main things we want to do is help you be more safeguarded, so that, you know, when you go on that blind date with the patient, it's an end result. You're not dealing with like a messy divorce or a messy separation at the end of it, right? So that's why we wanted to share that information with you. So definitely knowing the details, having a little bit of slow breathing meditation, writing down all the things you need to do in your practice for all of these external threats, as well as the internal threats, is definitely key. We have a customized package for you that I'm very passionate about. Our whole team at Prosperident, we pride ourselves in trying to safeguard our clients. So our office protection system would be definitely something for you to look into, because we look at all these 25 hotspots internally and externally in your office.
Awesome. Well, it's that time when we turn it over to the audience and allow them to ask some questions. Just if you have a question, type it into the question box in Zoom. Wendy and Amber are going to start feeding them to me in a minute. And just while you're doing that, we'll mention a couple of things. First of all, we love to hear from you, and there's how to reach us. If you have concerns about embezzlement in your practice, or as Amber says, you want to protect yourself against internal and external threats. And we're going to make this really attractive, because from now until July 31st, we're giving anybody who calls us from this webinar a $500 credit on essentially any Prosperident product. So if you are thinking about doing something in your practice, now's your time. And as mentioned early on, we have 2 webinars left before we wrap this up. So August 19th, and we've said his name a few times, Gary Salmon is going to be with us. And if you haven't heard Gary speak, he's awesome. I mean, he can scare the pants off you, but he's very knowledgeable. And his company is called Black Talon Security, and they're in a way they're like what we are. I mean, their niche is very narrow, and they deal with IT security. They're not like your IT person who, you know, fixes your system when you can't get email. Their whole focus is security. And Gary's a great presenter. You will learn a lot from him. And then our final session will be on September 23rd. And that one's going to be a little bit freewheeling. And I think Wendy and Amber and I are going to talk about some of the experiences that we've had. So we'll see you then. As I say, if you have questions, we'll take about 15 minutes worth of them. And thank you all for being part of our audience. Oops.
Well, let me just say real quick, I've noticed Stephen Lang and John H have had their hands raised, their Zoom hands raised for a while. Stephen and John, if you have a question, if you would either put it in the chat or send it through the Q&A box, we'll be able to answer those questions for you. I'm not sure if that was a mistake or but their hands have been up almost the whole time. So, or
maybe they have to go to the bathroom, Wendy.
Interested. Maybe they have to go to the bathroom.
And actually, if I can just slightly modify something Wendy said. Please put your questions in the Q&A box. We have somebody monitoring chat, but they're not really in a position to answer questions. And I see a few questions coming through in the chat. We can't tackle them there. So if you have done that, please just copy it and paste it to the Q&A, and we'll take it there. And if you have to go to the bathroom, please do it. It's really hard to sit here and concentrate when your wisdom teeth are floating.
Okay. I have a question, or someone has a question. What is the current level of enforcement for HIPAA violations? I just saw that graph today.
Draconian is the word. The folks who do this have no sense of humor. I was looking the other day at some of the fines applied so far in 2021. The biggest fine so far this year is like $5.2 million. So that's a single company that got fined. No, there's no leniency. There's no clemency whatsoever if you breach HIPAA. I mean, as Wendy said, they will look at what your intent was, and and a deliberate breach obviously is more serious than one that's inadvertent, but they will fine you no matter what. And if you commit a HIPAA breach and then you don't follow the proper corrective action, that's when you can expect to get hit pretty hard, because now it's moved from something that's accidental to something that's willful. So we don't want to be there.
Okay, and then someone wants to know the name of the lock key to the computer. I guess the one you held up.
Oh, it's called an Every Key, EVERYKEY. There may be other ones as well. That's the one I use, and it's great. It works with all my devices, so my laptop and my desktop and so on. And it's just this little gizmo that fits on my key ring, and you plug it in about once a week to charge it, and it just connects via Bluetooth to your computer. So if you're using a desktop computer, most desktops don't have a built-in Bluetooth chip, so you need a chip as well. But I priced these the other day, and they were $44 with free delivery. So it's it's a great little gizmo, and it just stays with me on my keychain.
Okay, and then Valerie wants you to elaborate on the office protection system.
Amber, do you want to tackle that one, or do you want me to?
You go ahead and tackle it.
Okay. Ops is a product that we have where we take a look at your control systems, and I'm using this in the broadest sense. So everything from looking at how you background check people before you hire them, to the security settings in your practice management software, to what the doctor's review process is at the end of the day. So we crawl over a lot of areas, and the idea is to find the weaknesses. And a lot of them, of course, are oriented towards embezzlement, but we also deal with issues like appropriate computer usage and security and the security of information and things like that. So the idea is to help you find areas where you're vulnerable and then correct them. And Amber does a fair amount of work in that department, as does one of our other team members, Debbie Long. And it's a great way to fix some things that are broken in your practice. And the corrections, I think I'd say, Amber, are fairly gentle. In other words, it's not like this is going to turn your practice on its ear. It's simply there to find the things that an embezzler, an IT thief could exploit.
Yes, and the thing I love about what we offer with Office Protection System is we look at your practice as its own individual masterpiece. And then we look at the areas that you're vulnerable and we customize, okay, here's how your practice is set up. Here's some weaknesses or vulnerabilities that we see that could happen. And so we like to do that one-on-one interaction with you, because a lot of, people have, oh, this is the safest way, but every practice is different. Every software is different. The services you provide may be different because you're a specialist. So we really customize it and really go in depth into the type of software you have, the type of services you provide, how you take payments, how you hire, all of those things.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great product, and we'd love to chat with you one-on-one if you have more questions.
Okay. Valerie has another question, and she writes, I was told that we could not keep copies of driver's license.
There's nothing I'm aware of there. Certainly when you're hiring people, and that's a situation where we also encourage you to check somebody's driver's license. In that case, the applicant needs to put their thumb or a Post-it note or something over a few things like their date of birth, because when you're hiring, of course, you can't discriminate because of age. So asking somebody's date of birth is sort of in the no-fly zone. There's no such restriction with patients. There's nothing in there. There may be a state law somewhere. Certainly there's nothing federal, and I can't think of any state law in any state I'm familiar with that prevents you from keeping a driver's license or any other identification on file for a patient.
Yeah, someone else wrote that they scan the IDs.
Yeah, that's.
You're scanning it into like a document
Yeah. I mean, some practice management software has a specific place in the patient's master file where you can capture that. Also, the other thing that a lot of practice management software will permit you to do is take a webcam picture of the patient. So you actually have on their in their chart, in their electronic chart, you have their picture. All good ideas. I mean, identity theft happens because somebody shows up as somebody else. And if you know who one of them is, you can solve it. And just on that, I saw a question about the Cures database and whether that solves prescription abuse kinds of issues. It would if everybody would follow the rules. So no database on the planet is going to flag me if I show up at 5 different dental practices and I give a different name in each place and I get a narcotics prescription and I go to 5 different drugstores using those names and get them filled. In other words, if I kept using my own name and doing it, yes, that would get me caught. Thieves, even ones who are drug addicts, are not stupid. They understand the system in which they function, and they know they have to use different names. One medical doctor here where I live got caught. She was a user, and she was phoning in prescriptions to a pharmacy for a specific patient, and then she would go to the pharmacy and pick them up, and she would say to the pharmacist, you know, the patient's an invalid, he can't get here, so I'm on my way to see him now, and I'm going to take the drugs to him. And eventually she got caught because the prescription monitoring program realized that this one patient got 1,200 opioid pills in a year, which is a lot under pretty much any set of assumptions. Had the doctor been a little more artistic about this and maybe used different patients in different pharmacies and stuff, she probably could have continued it. But, you know, databases have a basic limitation. They assume that people are showing up under their own name, and the addicts may not be quite that cooperative.
I have a question that's kind of interesting. Why is an insurance card have more street value than a credit card? What are your opinions on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And a couple of things there. First of all, the anti-fraud safeguards built into credit cards are pretty good. In other words, for example, your credit card company knows approximately how much gas your car takes. And, you know, if you drive a hybrid and it's normally $30 to fill it, and suddenly you're spending $200 at the gas pump 2 or 3 times, your credit card company will flag that. And, you know, if they know that you live in Houston and they suddenly see a whole bunch of purchases in Oklahoma City, and at the same time they see a whole lot of gas, and you're not somebody who typically travels or rents cars, you know, your card will get blocked, and they'll call you and just double check that you are in fact in Oklahoma City driving an Earthwrecker 9000. The sophistication of the insurance companies is much, much, much less. Some of the stuff, and Wendy and Amber have certainly seen it, as have I. Some of the stuff that goes through insurance companies, I saw somebody once who was billing an insurance company for work that wasn't being done and pocketing the money. And they billed more than 12 root canals in a single month on a 14-year-old patient. Now, you know, everybody who's in the audience who has a connection to dentistry knows that there is no such thing as pediatric quadrant endodontics. You know, that there's just not a 14-year-old on the planet who needs a dozen endos. But the insurance company didn't catch that. We did. So they're a little bit unsophisticated. And the other thing is, people need fairly expensive treatment. I mean, if you need a kidney and you don't have insurance, you know, that's $70,000. And if you had a working set of insurance information, and you can get that $70,000 kidney transplant covered under somebody else's insurance, that has a lot of value. I mean, nobody can squeeze that kind of money out of a credit card. So yeah, working credit cards have value, but it's limited. Working insurance is worth a lot more. So great question.
Okay, Patrick wants to know if we're going to be at the ADA meeting in Houston next year.
Good question. A little off our planning horizon, but yeah, we likely will have somebody there. And if we're not at that, we'll probably be in Houston for some other reason in the next year, Patrick. And if you're around, yeah, love to chat. You can always see our upcoming speaking schedule on our website. So if you go to prosperident.com and then follow the menus through to speaking, you can find out where we are, because all of our speaking goes into the calendar.
And can I do a shameless plug?
Who's going to say no to you, Wendy?
Who's going to say no? But I hate shameless plugs. But anyway, this made me think of it because I've been troubled. Well, let me do my shameless plug first. I think it's very generous of you to offer a $500 credit toward Prosperident services, because I know we normally don't do that. I mean, we normally don't do any kind of discounting whatsoever. But I just what made me think of that, and I'm actually kind of grateful that you're doing that. I'm coming from a grateful heart. Is I had to deliver some bad news to one of my clients today, who when we had the initial examiner's initial interview, he was 100% sure. Let me take that back. He was 99% sure that nothing was happening in his practice. And I just kept telling him, well, as a certified fraud examiner, I go into the examination and I'm neutral. I don't have any opinion if it's happening or not. I look at transactions, and the results of those transactions are either the money goes into your bank account or the money does not. And that's what I look at. So anyway, I had that difficult conversation with him this morning, and we're up to about $80,000 so far. Mm-hmm. And it's so typical of what we usually say. There are 3 methodologies that she's using, and it's up to 80, and we're not even through with the 12-month investigation time period yet. So what's our average? Around 100, 110. It'll be past that by the time we get up there. Anyway, my whole thing was to say thank you, David. I know we don't normally do that. We don't normally discount. So that's kind of you to offer our live web goers.
We appreciate our audience. It's been such a privilege to be able to share time with you guys over the past 15 months. And it's a chance for us to give back. So we want to thank all of you tonight and every night for hanging out with us. And we'll see you back on August 19th. Wendy, Amber, thank you very much. You guys always make this fun. And you know, it just wouldn't be the same without a Wendy emotional explosion at some point in the session. And just love those. Thank you all very much. I'll also thank our colleague Sheila O'Driscoll, who's the silent one on chat with us. And we'll see you guys all in a little under a month. Thanks. Good night, everybody. And
bye. Love you guys. Bye. Thanks for attending.
This concludes this episode of the Prosperident Webinar series. The team will be back soon with more tools and ideas. If you have questions about this webinar, if you would like to discuss your practice with one of us, or if there is a topic you would like to see in a future webinar, we would love to hear from you. You can contact Prosperident through its website, www.prosperident.com, or by calling 888-398-2327.